Alright, here's the gist. We're drawing cars. Now, I've been wanting to do vehicle studies for a while now. I've been fascinated with stylistic vehicles and animated shows and films. A couple of the things I've noticed was that in vehicle design, much like character design, it heavily relies upon unique silhouettes. As you can see, I've broken down a handful of vehicles to an assortment of shapes and silhouettes to understand how they work. Now, I've gotten into the habit of starting out with a perspective grid. While shows tend to push boundaries on proportion, they still like to keep uniform in perspective. As a digital artist, I don't tend to use many traditional mediums other than paints. So it's pretty nice to use pencils for a change. I definitely had to get used to shading with pencils because the first illustration didn't really turn out that well. So I redid a different vehicle. Now, the thing about this car, while drawing it, I was a lot more confident with most of my strokes. The only thing I would have probably done different with this one is change the grille of the car, since it kind of looks like just a giant set of teeth. But to be quite honest, I'm pretty proud of how this drawing turned out. So I took the first illustration of the car and I threw it into Photoshop. I usually only work with 5 layers. You got lines, colors only on 1 layer for some reason, shadows, highlights, and obviously a sketch. Although this time I kind of decided to switch it up. Each section I did on its own layer, and each layer had a separate shadow and light layer. Sometimes I had 2 or 3 shadow and light layers. I don't know. Do you guys think having a bunch more layers... I don't know. Do you guys think having a bunch more layers per drawing is a lot more simpler than just, having all colors on 1 layer? I doubt it. Now, a cool thing I was trying to replicate with a lot of the references that I used was they used a grainy texture in their vehicles when shading, and I was never able to figure out how to do that. And so I was testing around with different effects and stuff, and I noticed that the noise effect does exactly what I needed it to do. So I applied a noise adder on all of my shadows, and in turn it created a much nicer looking and sheen looking vehicle, giving it a more realistic metallic texture over a flat silicone or like a toy look. This is my perspective grid again. For the road, I did the same thing with the noise adder, except I also used the motion blur so that not only does it look like the car is in actual motion, but the road itself has that grainy texture that, normal roads have. Alright, so we've basically reached the end, so I'm gonna sign off here. Hope this was actually helpful somehow. I'll see you in the next one.